Thank you very much. So it's true, and last year we were on the conference circuit and we were playing videos, that's all we had, of Minister Shane Jones, the Resources Minister of New Zealand, who was promising economic reform through the introduction of this fast-track approvals bill. And every presentation I did to investors was met with the same question: do you think the bill would get up? And I kept answering, well, I think it's going to get up because that's what the government's telling us. And I'm pleased to say that in December, on the 23rd of December, when everyone was breaking for Christmas, the fast-track approvals bill was ratified into law in New Zealand. And our project, the Bendigo Ophir Gold Project in New Zealand, was officially identified and named in the bill, which basically gives us a very clear permitting pathway as a project of national significance. So I'll tell you all about it. So if you missed the elevator pitch on this company and this project, we've made the most significant gold discovery in New Zealand in over 40 years. In an area steeped with a gold mining history, over 8 million ounces has been pulled out of central Otago since the 1860s, and now in a country with a clear permitting pathway afforded by the fast-track approvals law. And it all came around at a perfect time for us, because to proceed into the fast-track approvals process, you need a pre-feasibility study. And we were just at that time in the life cycle of the project. We'd drilled out the Rise and Shine deposit, and we were entering into our PFS study phase. So it's just all come into place, fallen into place at the right time for us, and it's incredibly exciting. So let me tell you about the project. First, I'll locate you on the map here. We are on the South Island of New Zealand, 1 hour away from Queenstown, and about 90 kilometres away from the famous Macraes gold mine, owned by Oceana Gold. And one of only two Tier 1 commercial gold mines in New Zealand, the other one being Waihi, both owned by Oceana Gold. So you can imagine how exciting this is, not just for our shareholders, but for the government to see New Zealand's third Tier 1 commercial scale gold mine to get up into production. We're in a semi-arid environment, and when one thinks of Queenstown, one thinks of the beautiful snow-topped Alps in Queenstown itself, or perhaps the stunning fjord land of Milford Sound. But it's not that. Where we are is rabbit-infested, depleted, beef and sheep country, privately owned freehold farmland, and we have agreements in place to mine with the station owner. So the image you're looking at now, and I'll go into the more specifics around the Rise and Shine discovery, but that's it in the gold bar. Just remember that trajectory and some of the topographical features on this slide. The Rise and Shine Valley to the south there on the right-hand side of the slide, an important feature because all of our discoveries have subcropped or outcropped in that valley. And that's because, as per the blue dotted line, there is a major regional fault structure called the Thompson Gorge Fault. Shepherd's Creek is also important. That's where all of our infrastructure will go, hidden away from the local community. But essentially, that is the project. That's the main event. But I'll zoom out now to the project area. You might remember that tenement shape on the location slide. There it is in the bottom right-hand side of that image. That little red square is essentially the project area you're looking at now. So about 10% of the broader tenure, and there's plenty of exploration upside. But that project area already 4 discoveries, and most certainly the main event is Rise and Shine. We call it RAS, over 2 million ounces, and now with a probable mining reserve of 1.15 million ounces on the back of our pre-feasibility study that we announced in November, which I'll go into. So those other satellite deposits, lower grade, fewer ounces, still over 100,000 ounces there, but they'll have a meaningful input into mill feed in the mine plan as we move forward. But certainly commercialising Rise and Shine is what we're trying to do at the moment. So let me tell you about this major discovery. This is a plan view looking down on the deposit. You can see again that blue line there, the Thompson Gorge Fault line, which basically transects the two different rock types, the TZ4 schist and the TZ3 schist. This is a blind discovery. I'll show you that in long section in the next slide. But looking down on the deposit, 450 metres wide mineralised zone, 150 metre wide high-grade core, and that's what we're going to focus on extracting. I'll tell you about that in a moment, and up to 45 metres thick in its thickest part. So it's, and traced 1.7 kilometres down plunge so far. So thick, long, wide, high-grade deposit that we are focusing on. Looking at it in long section, this is looking east, but this is a really good way of demonstrating the continuity. So our founding director, Kim Bunting, who's on our board, raised some money in 2021, put a drill rig up on top of that TZ3 light grey rock and drilled through 100 metres of blind cover to make this discovery. And every time he stepped out, down plunge to the north, he kept hitting it. So it was certainly a game changer for Santana. So looking at the cross sections now, in fact, I'll just go back. I'm going to show you cross section A, so you can see that dotted line there. I'm going to slice the ore body. We're going to turn it 90 degrees and look through it so you can see how thick it is. And this is what's got everybody really excited about this project. As you can see there, up to 40, 45, 50 metres thick. That's 4 times the height of this ballroom, and of grades of 7, 8 grams per tonne. The last hole we put into this high-grade core was 42 metres at 8.5 grams per tonne, and that's not unusual, certainly in this zone of the ore body. And it's a flat-lying ore body, so all of those intercepts are near on true width. So it's a very simple geometry, very simple ore body to define, and will be to extract. Of course, all of that is only meaningful if we can liberate the gold. And I'm pleased to see this is probably the simplest part of the project, is it's all free milling gold, 93% recoveries, high gravity component, low reagent costs, very simple flow sheet, simple CIL processing. So we put out a PFS in November, probably a bit premature. We needed to get something in place to lay the framework of the project to give effect to our fast track approvals application that we'll be submitting imminently. But what it showed us is that we had a large open pit going underground. So 8 years of mining at Rise and Shine in the open pit, and then 6 years of underground mining. And at recent gold prices, and you can see, and we went over 5,000 an ounce overnight, which is hugely exciting. But at 4,500 per ounce, this project has a net present value of $1.3 billion, multiples of where our market cap is at the moment. We'll build the project for $340 million, but I'll tell you about that because we are looking at a smarter way of staging the pit sequencing, and we'll reveal that through our PFS update soon. But on these metrics from the November release, we'll be producing gold at an all-in cost, not all-in sustaining, but including all of the capex at $1,880 per ounce, giving us a margin of $2,670 per ounce. So what that effectively means is the gold price could halve and would still have a really robust project. And so what that means is just really, really good metrics for banking, and all of the banks, we've been engaged with all of the big retail banks from Australia and New Zealand, and you know that it's an attractive proposition when you get those low-risk banks knocking on the door, because it's New Zealand. Basically an extension of Australia, it's gold. So there's a strong appetite from the retail side in terms of the debt proportion of what will likely be a traditional debt to equity style financing of this project. And that's only half the story. Important to say, you'll see there in the top row, still 730,000 ounces at Rise and Shine in the inferred category. So obviously these metrics are wrapped around our indicated ounces, but still plenty more upside at the project. So this is just the beginning for us, just to get it into production. One of the reasons that it's such a low cost of production is the area. We are located in an area that is just blessed with infrastructure. You can see our project location there in the top right-hand corner of the slide, tucked inside the Dunstan Ranges, out of view from the local community, essentially being the town of Cromwell that has 8,000 people there, so a captive workforce all crying out for better jobs. We have access to fresh water, great for processing, low-cost hydropower from the Clyde Dam nearby, and a bitumen road on State Highway 8 that goes right up to the turn-off to the project. So a lot of that sort of stuff. There won't be any FIFO headaches, no catering contracts, no airstrips. So very low cost from an OPEX situation, and a bit of a win on the CAPEX as well. But it's all about the Fast Track Approvals Act now. Again, we are officially identified as a project of national significance, and why wouldn't we be? Potentially $1 billion of taxes and royalties into the government coffers over the first 10 years of production. So essentially, the doors open for fast track submissions in February. We are very, very close to getting our application in, possibly in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We'll keep the market updated on where that's at. But prescriptive under the fast track approvals law is a 6-month permitting timeframe. So what that means is we could be funded and approved and buckets in the ground ready for construction by the end of the year. So it's a very near-term construction proposition. So what have we been doing since the PFS in November? I mentioned before that we're restaging the pit, and we've essentially, before I get to that, it's the next slide actually, essentially we're preparing for mining. We've been redefining the high-grade domain that I showed you before, just keeping it as tight as possible so that we don't step outside that wireframe when it comes to mining, so that we tighten up and reduce our stripping ratio. So we drilled the eastern margin of Rise and Shine, because on the eastern margin that sits underneath Battery Hill. You might remember it from the third slide where I showed you the actual landscape. So we don't want to step out to the east, so we've tightened up that eastern wall, redomained the high-grade core. There's over 1 million ounces just in that high-grade domain, and that's running at about 4.5 to 5 grams per tonne. Anything outside of that we mine as a consequence in our LG or lower grade domain, which is still 2 grams per tonne, we'll manage on the way through. But there's just an acute focus on extracting that high-grade core, which gives effect to the pit staging exercise I mentioned. You'll recall that the CapEx bill on this project is $340 million. Inside of that is a $120 million pre-strip. We weren't super happy about that, so we're going through a new pit staging exercise, and we think that we can get that number down. So essentially in the PFS release in November, there was 12 million cubic metres pre-strip at $10 a cube. We think we can do it for 8 million cubic metres. You can do the sums yourself. But essentially our PFS update that we'll release in about 6 weeks will factor in the new pit staging and some refinements in the process plant. And we're really excited about that. And we've got the team to do it. Just a quick look at our board. Peter Cook, behind companies like Westgold and Metals X. He's been involved in a number of gold developments. Damien Spring, our CEO, lives half an hour from the project. He's on site right now getting this permitted. Kim Bunting, he's the geologist that discovered Rise and Shine. Emma Scotney joined us a couple of months ago, sitting on the De Grey board, so a wealth of experience there. And Craig McPherson, our COSEC and CFO. We've got $56 million in the bank. At the cash burn at the moment, we'll get to FID at the end of the year. We'll probably still have $40 million in the bank, so super well funded. If you want to buy this stock, you'll have to get it on market at the moment, fully funded to FID. So we've got a high-grade, high-margin project of national significance named in the Fast Track Approvals Act with a very clear pathway to permitting that'll see us into construction by the end of this year. You know, I keep thinking about other projects that already have a mining permit and a CIL or processing plant sitting on the side, and they're trading at multiples of where we are today. So on any peer value comparison, there's a lot of value to go once those major catalysts fall into place, and therein lies the opportunity. Put us on your watch list.